Thank you for joining us for our last episode of the first season of HeLPiNG Questions. I'm Dr. Alicia Luque, HeLPiNG Questions host. In today's episode, we will have the opportunity to ask Professor Ellen Bialystok our fifth HeLPiNG question. Professor Ellen Bialystok is a distinguished research professor of psychology at York University in Toronto, Canada. Ellen's research on the cognitive neuroscience of bilingualism is groundbreaking and absolutely fascinating, and covers a wide range of topics that go from uncovering what are the brain and cognitive mechanisms that make bilingualism possible, to better understanding the consequences that being and becoming bilingual have for the mind and brain across the lifespan. Her work on bilingualism and aging is especially noteworthy. Please take a seat and stay with us as we get to hear more from Ellen about the ways in which bilingualism can impact healthy and pathological aging. Welcome, Ellen, to the fifth episode of HeLPiNG Questions, and thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
We're so excited to have you as our guest and to be able to discover together fascinating scientific facts about bilingualism, considering the groundbreaking contributions you have made to help us better understand the cognitive consequences of bilingualism across the lifespan. We really couldn't think of a better scientist to ask our fifth HeLPiNG question. Should we jump right in?
Let's go.
Okay, so great. Then, Ellen, based on your experience, knowledge, and expertise, in what ways do you think bilingualism can impact healthy and pathological aging?
Looking at bilingualism in the context of aging is really interesting. It's the most interesting piece of the lifespan. And as you mentioned, I've studied these effects across the entire lifespan, from infancy, children, young adults. But there's something unique about aging. And I would say that the main concept for aging that connects to bilingualism is resilience. So we know that children develop in certain ways. We know that certain experiences can push that development around a little bit, but not in huge ways. For young adults, when we're looking at these tiny, detailed laboratory experimental tasks, we find that there's some effect of experience, some effect of bilingualism, but these are small effects. It's after a lifetime of using your mind in a certain way that more robust patterns begin to emerge. And again, I think what's most robust about the bilingual mind is resilience.
Ellen, this was fascinating. So when you say about resilience, do you mean resilience about, let's say, the cognitive or the inherent cognitive effects that we see of aging? Is that exactly what you're referring to?
Yes, exactly. That is exactly what I mean. Because using two languages forces your mind to routinely do certain things that are challenging. To focus on the language you need, not get distracted by the other language. These are all brain and mind functions that sharpen attention. And I think now that when we're looking for a kind of a name for what is changed by bilingualism, I now think that name is attention, and more specifically, selective attention. Now, why does this matter? It matters because the entire brain kind of fades with aging. You know, everybody has trouble. I met that person on the street. What was her name? No idea. Where did I put my keys? Why did I come into the kitchen? This is all normal aging. Our brains, our minds are less acute. So if we're going to make any progress with healthy aging, then the more we practice various kinds of cognitive functions, the better those functions will be. If you want to play a Rachmaninoff piano concerto, practice, right? It's easy. So that's normal healthy aging, where we're just keeping these main brain processes like attention and selection always in use. But when we go to pathological aging, the stakes go much higher. So the first thing to keep in mind is that there is no pharmacological intervention for clinical cognitive decline and dementia, there is none. There was this big flurry of activity over the last 6 months about HeLPiNG, and finally Biogen acknowledged this isn't going anywhere and it's withdrawn. There is nothing. The only intervention that seems to have any reliable effect is life experiences, what's called cognitive reserve. And our research has shown that lifelong bilingualism is one of those experiences. So it's right up there with more education, more stimulating job, more aerobic exercise. All of these lifestyle choices improve the overall quality of brain function, even in the face of neuropathology and dementia. And bilingualism does too. Why? Resilience. Because the regions of the brain that have been used the whole life to manage attention to two languages, those pathways are more efficient. And if brain pathways are more efficient, the brain works better. So this is it's a kind of a story about using your brain throughout life so that it's in better shape when things begin to deteriorate.
This is, I think it's so, of course, as I said everything before, right? Like fascinating. But then I also feel like, hopefully in a way, right? Because if we know that there's certain activities that we can engage in our daily life, that are not only going to open up so many beautiful avenues to connect with other cultures and other people and be a better human being overall, right? Because you're going to be more connected, more aware. But at the same time, that is going to benefit our overall cognition and our, neurocognitive status in a way as we face the, inevitable, hopefully knock on wood, that we all, right, get to age in such a way, right? So would you say, as to me, the world leading expert on many issues, very, very relevant to bilingualism, but definitely in helping us understand, the consequences of bilingualism in cognition as we move on across the lifespan. Then would you recommend people who are hesitant, is it too late to learn a second language? Should I go ahead? Would this be one of the reasons to engage and not give up in the beautiful, life-changing journey of becoming bilingual?
Okay, you raised a lot of points there.
Yes.
So I want to comment on several of them. First, I'm very glad you started with all of these other benefits of bilingualism. So people say to me, is there an advantage of bilingualism? And what they mean is, do bilingual people perform a Stroop task 50 milliseconds faster than a monolingual person? And I say, oh, come on, who cares? That is so not important. And yet there's so much over fixation on these, millisecond results. So the real benefit of bilingualism is all of the stuff that you talked about, which is really important. Bilingual people have a different place in the world. They connect differently. They have different possibilities for communication. They can connect to their family, culture, history, ancestry. We all come from someplace, right? And knowing the languages of your own history is important. So I'm very glad you made that point, because it almost never comes up. People want to know if bilinguals can perform a Stroop test 10 milliseconds faster. I don't care about that. But let's go to your other points, though. We have now quite a lot of evidence that bilingualism is associated with maintaining higher cognitive performance in older age, even with dementia. So the question you're asking is, how much bilingualism? Is it too late? Does it have to be early? And so forth. So what I would say is that bilingualism is an example of experience-dependent plasticity. The brain plasticity, the cognitive modifications, they reflect the experience. Okay, so what's the answer to your question? Let's say you want to be able to play that Rachmaninoff piano concerto. What are you going to do? You're going to practice. What happens if you practice more? You'll play it better. What happens if you stop practicing altogether? You play it worse. It's that simple. That as an experience, it kind of engages the mind over time. The more, the better. The longer, the better. The earlier you start, the better. The higher your level of proficiency, the better. The more you use all the languages, the better. So these are all ways of describing that incredibly multifactorial experience that we simplify into a word, bilingualism. And I do want to add that there's a real danger there. When we say bilingualism, it's a thing. The implications are it's a single thing. We know it's not. That there's an opposite thing that we could call monolingualism and contrast it. There isn't. Mm-hmm. So the language we use has been really harmful in being able to see the complexity of this multifactorial experience in which it's the nature and quantity of experience that leads to outcomes. I want to add one more thing. We did a study recently. This was a study with a colleague of mine, Jed Meltzer, here in Toronto. So we took monolinguals, whatever that means. They were largely monolinguals. And they were on average about 70, 75 years old. They were all perfectly healthy. None of them have ever had any cognitive complaints or memory complaints. They're just perfectly normal, healthy, older adult monolinguals. And we put them in a training study with 3 groups. So one group, and we did lots and lots of tests before and then after. So after the tests, one group went off for 16 weeks and used this brain training app on their smartphone. That's right, they're advertised all the time. You do these little games and stuff, and they say save your brain. Now, these little games are very similar to the kinds of cognitive tasks that we use to do this research. They're kind of Stroop test light sorts of things. So one group did those brain training games for 16 weeks and then came back and did all the tests again. Another group got Duolingo Spanish. And they're all, sworn to spend 30 minutes a day, every day for 16 weeks. And then they're retested. And a third group, they were just the control group. It was a passive control. They didn't do anything. So what we want to look at is their tests after the training period. Now, we expect the brain training group to improve because they've just been practicing. And we expect the control group to not change. And that's what we found. So what happened to people who learn Spanish? Learning Spanish is nothing like brain training. It doesn't have any of those features and stuff. But the group who learned Spanish improved almost as much as the brain training group. I'm learning Spanish. Now, are those effects going to stay? We didn't do a follow-up test. Lots of things we didn't do. But learning Spanish for 16 weeks improved performance on these cognitive tasks that are used in the bilingualism literature.
Well, it's almost like mind-bagging and beautifully mind-bagging. And, so I guess we could say that it's definitely never too late to engage in the beautiful and life-changing experience of learning another language, right? And this might come with some benefits that was going to affect your emotional, psychological health, and also maybe your brain health. So I guess why not, right?
I agree. Well
Yeah.
put.
Well, Ellen, thank you so much. For everything. You're a real inspiration, and this is a gift to be able to sit with you and ask you these questions. Thank you so much for your very insightful answers, for your generosity, and for helping all of us to better understand the consequences that being bilingual has for the mind and brain as we get older. And it was an absolute pleasure to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
We really hope you enjoyed our fifth helping question, in that Ellen's fascinating scientific insight and professional experience helped you to better understand some of the ways in which bilingualism can impact healthy and pathological aging. Stay tuned for the first episode of our second season coming to you on September 1st, where we'll get to ask Professor Sharon Unsworth, researcher at the Center for Language Studies and associate professor in the Departments of Modern Languages and Cultures and Language and Communication at Radboud University in the Netherlands, our sixth helping question. What are some specific ways in which we can support child bilingualism, both inside and outside of the family context? We look forward to seeing you all back here on September 1st. Also, do not forget to subscribe and to share with us your thoughts, feedback, and comments on any of our social media channels. Thank you for listening, and look forward to seeing you for the launch of our second season of HeLPiNG Questions of September 1st. Bye!